Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work part-time at this big retail store for about 8 months now, the one with the red logo that everyone knows. I'm usually up front running a register or outside gathering shopping carts from the parking lot. The pay isn't great, honestly it's pretty bad, but I needed something flexible while I'm taking classes at the community college. My mom's been on disability for 2 years after her car accident, and my younger brother just started high school, so every bit helps with bills at home. I picked up as many shifts as they'd give me, usually closing shifts because those are the ones nobody wants. Yesterday was supposed to be a normal Tuesday evening shift. I clocked in at 4, did my usual routine of checking my register drawer and making sure my scanner was working. The store was busy but not crazy. Around 6:30, this woman rolled up to my lane with one of those massive carts piled high with stuff. I'm talking overflowing. Groceries, toys, household items, just mountains of products stacked on top of each other. I started scanning everything, making small talk like I always do. The total kept climbing. When I finally scanned the last item and hit the total button, it came to $286.43. Not unusual for a big shopping trip. That's when she noticed my lanyard hanging around my neck with my employee badge attached. Her whole face lit up. She called me sweetie and told me to scan my employee discount for her, saying we're all struggling these days. I apologized and explained that the employee discount was only for employee purchases or immediate household family members. I told her I couldn't apply it to her transaction. Her face changed instantly. The friendly smile disappeared. She pushed back, telling me to come on and not be like that. She said it was just a discount and nobody would know. I repeated that I really couldn't do it. I explained it was against store policy and I could lose my job. Before I could even react, she reached across the counter and grabbed my badge. Not just touched it, she grabbed the whole thing by the clip and yanked it toward the card reader, shoving the barcode right up against the scanner. The machine made this loud, angry beeping sound, the kind that means error or unauthorized action. I reached over and took my badge back from her hand. I wasn't rough about it. I just took what was mine back. But she lost it. She yelled at me not to touch her and accused me of assaulting her. Her voice was so loud that everyone in the nearby lanes turned to look. I felt my face get hot. That burning sensation when you know people are staring at you. My hands started shaking. I've never been good with confrontation, and now there were at least a dozen customers watching this whole thing unfold. Within a minute, my manager and the loss prevention guy were walking up to my register. The manager, this older guy, who's usually pretty calm, asked what was happening. The woman immediately started talking over me, saying I refused to help her, and then grabbed her arm. The manager told us all to step back to the office so we could review the cameras. We walked to this tiny room in the back where they keep all the security monitors. It smells like dust and printer toner in there, and it's always too warm. The loss prevention guy pulled out the footage from my register camera. The video was crystal clear. It showed her reaching over the counter, grabbing my lanyard, pulling it toward the scanner, and then me simply taking it back. No grabbing her, no touching her at all, beyond reclaiming my own property. The woman watched the video and her story changed immediately. She started crying, then stopped crying, then started again. It looked so fake. She said fine, whatever, and then asked if she could at least get a gift card or something. She claimed I was ruining her kid's birthday party. She said she came here to get birthday supplies, and now we were kicking her out. The manager told her he was going to have to ask her to leave. He said he was printing a trespass notice, and she wasn't welcome back at this location. She shouted that he couldn't do this. She said she was calling corporate and was going to get me fired. She pointed right at me when she said it. The manager escorted her out of the office, and I could hear her yelling all the way through the store about lawyers and discrimination and corporate headquarters. I sat in that office for another 10 minutes while the loss prevention guy finished up his report. He told me not to worry, that the video evidence was clear, and that people try this kind of stuff all the time. He said I handled it correctly by not escalating. About an hour later, right before my shift ended, the loss prevention guy found me while I was straightening up my register area. He said he wanted to give me an update. He told me that woman had called corporate after she left. She told them I promised her 20% off a microwave that costs $29.99 and then refused to honor it. I was confused and asked what she was talking about. I said I never said anything like that and didn't even know what microwave she meant. He told me not to worry. He explained that corporate pulled the footage, listened to her story, and closed the complaint. He said I was completely fine and they noted in the system that she's trespassed from this location. I felt relieved, but also completely exhausted, like emotionally drained. When my shift finally ended at 9, I used my actual 10% employee discount to buy myself a $1.09 soda from the cooler near the registers, clocked out, and drove home. My hands were still shaky when I gripped the steering wheel. The whole drive back I kept replaying the moment she grabbed my badge. The way she just reached over like she had every right to it. The way she twisted the situation to make herself the victim when the cameras caught everything she did. I thought about how she tried to use her kid's birthday as an excuse, like that somehow justified trying to steal a discount that wasn't hers. When I got home, my mom was still up watching television in the living room. She asked how work was, and I just told her it was fine. I didn't want to get into the whole story because she worries enough already. My brother was in his room doing homework with his headphones on. Everything at home was normal and quiet, which was exactly what I needed after the chaos at the store. I went to my room and changed out of my work uniform, that red polo shirt and khaki pants that I wear 5 days a week. I thought about looking for another job, maybe something where I don't have to deal with customers face to face. But then I remembered that I need the flexible schedule, and most places that would hire me want the same availability I'm already giving. The next morning I woke up to a text from my manager. He said corporate had officially backed me up and added another note to that woman's file. He said if she tries to come back to any location in the district, security will escort her out immediately. He thanked me for keeping calm during the situation and said I did everything right. I felt a little better reading that. At least the system worked the way it was supposed to. The cameras caught the truth, and the people who needed to see it actually watched the footage instead of just taking her word for it. I had another shift that evening, and I was honestly nervous about going back. I kept thinking about what if she shows up again, or what if another customer tries something similar. But my shift ended up being completely normal. I scanned groceries, helped people find items, collected carts from the parking lot. Nobody grabbed my badge or accused me of anything. I've been with my girlfriend for 4 years now, and in all that time I can count on one hand how many times we've actually been early to something. It's not that she doesn't care about being on time, she does. We both hate being late, but somehow every single time we need to go somewhere, the same pattern repeats itself. When we first began dating, I noticed she was always running a bit behind, but I figured it was just normal stuff. Everyone runs late sometimes, right? But as our relationship continued, I realized this wasn't occasional. This was every single time. My girlfriend has irritable bowel syndrome, which I completely understand is out of her control. That alone can set us back by a significant amount of time on any given day. But beyond that, there's a whole list of things that happen every time we need to leave the house. When she is feeling tired, she'll insist on getting an hour of sleep first. I've tried to suggest she could nap after we get back, but she always says she needs it right then and won't budge on it. Then there's the puttering. She'll sit on the couch watching shows on her phone while supposedly getting ready to do other things. I'll walk by and she's just sitting there, completely absorbed in whatever she's watching. Breakfast is non-negotiable. She absolutely has to have it. And she won't just grab something quick. She'll cook a full meal and sit down to eat it properly, never rushing through it. I've suggested we could pick something up on the way or eat when we get back, but she always tells me she can't function without having a proper breakfast first thing. The clothing situation might be the most time-consuming part. She'll go into the bedroom and come out 20 minutes later in an outfit look at herself in the mirror, decide she doesn't like how it looks, and go back to change. Sometimes this happens 3 or 4 times. Then comes the makeup, which takes another chunk of time. And finally, she needs to pack extra things: wipes, water bottles, sometimes a change of clothes if we're going to be out for a while. I get that some of these things are necessary, but the way she goes about gathering them, checking and rechecking everything, adds even more time. I've brought this up with her before, multiple times actually. It never goes well. I've tried telling her she needs to focus more on getting ready so we don't end up running late. When I do, either she gets angry and insists that she actually is trying to hurry and I'm just not noticing her efforts, or she gets sad and upset, admits that she knows we're running late and tells me I should just go without her. But she doesn't know how to drive, so if I leave without her, she basically can't come at all. She'll just stay home. Yesterday was the breaking point for me. My friend was putting on this small event at his place. Just a casual get-together with some people. Nothing fancy, but I wanted us to be there on time for once. I told my girlfriend we needed to be there by 12 p.m. Everything happened exactly like it always does. She dealt with her stomach issues. She was tired, so she took a nap. She sat on the couch watching her phone. She made breakfast and ate slowly. She changed clothes twice. She did her full makeup routine and she packed her bag with all her extra items. The whole time she kept looking at me nervously and asking if I was mad at her because we were running late. I kept reassuring her it was okay and that we really just needed to go, trying to keep my voice calm and not start a fight. But inside I was frustrated. So frustrated. She finally finished getting ready at 12:16 p.m., 16 minutes after we were supposed to already be there. She apologized for taking so long, which she always does, and then asked me how long it would take us to get there. She wanted to know if my friends would be mad at both of us for showing up late. That's when I told her the truth. I explained that it was actually okay because I had lied to her. The event didn't really start at 12 p.m. It actually started at 1:30 p.m. I thought maybe she'd be relieved. I thought maybe she'd see that I was trying to help us actually be on time for once. Instead, she absolutely lost it. She turned to me and her face went red. She told me in no uncertain terms that I was a huge jerk for lying to her. She went on about how I had made her rush the entire time for no reason. She was angrier than I'd seen her in a long time. I tried to explain that this was actually good. I pointed out that now we were going to arrive early for something, which never happens. I thought she'd appreciate that we'd finally be early instead of late and apologizing to everyone. She shot back that this wasn't the point at all. She said the real issue was that I had lied to her. She kept coming back to the lying, saying she couldn't believe I would deceive her like that. I tried to tell her that I didn't see any other option, that we've talked about this problem so many times and nothing ever changes, but she didn't want to hear any of it. We went to the event, but the whole day she barely spoke to me. When my friends tried to include her in conversations, she'd give short answers and then go quiet again. The drive home was completely silent. When we got back to our place, she went straight to the bedroom without saying a word. That was yesterday. Today she's still giving me the cold shoulder. Every time I try to talk to her about it, she just walks away or gives me one-word answers. I've tried apologizing, tried explaining my reasoning again, but nothing seems to get through to her. I honestly don't know if what I did was wrong or not. I was just trying to solve a problem that's been going on for 4 years. A problem that affects both of us and makes us consistently late to everything. I thought if I could just get us to one thing early, maybe she'd see that it's possible. Maybe she'd understand how much better it feels to not be rushing and stressing and apologizing. But instead, all she can focus on is the fact that I lied. She keeps saying that trust is everything in a relationship, and I broke that trust. She says it doesn't matter what my intentions were or what I was trying to accomplish. The lie itself was the problem. I've been sitting here thinking about it all day. Part of me feels guilty because I know lying isn't great. But another part of me feels frustrated because this has been an ongoing issue for years and nothing I've tried has worked. Talking to her directly just leads to fights, or her getting sad. Trying to help her stay on track while she's getting ready makes her feel like I'm nagging her. Suggesting we leave separately isn't an option because she can't drive. So I tried something different. I tried to trick the system in a way, and it backfired completely. Now I'm sitting here wondering if our relationship can recover from this. She is barely looking at me. She's sleeping on the far edge of the bed. She's making her own meals and eating alone. It's like I've become invisible in my own home. My friend texted me this morning asking if everything was okay because my girlfriend seemed off at the event yesterday. I didn't know what to tell him. I certainly couldn't explain the whole situation over text, so I just said we had a disagreement and left it at that. But now I'm wondering if I should have just accepted that we'll always be late to things. Maybe that's just who we are as a couple. The people who show up late and apologize. Maybe I should have just made peace with it instead of trying to change it. Or maybe I should have been more creative in my approach. Maybe I should have tried harder to help her figure out ways to streamline her routine. Maybe I should have been more patient. All I know is that right now, sitting here in this silent apartment with my girlfriend barely acknowledging my existence, I feel like I've made a huge mistake, and I don't know how to fix it. I've been driving buses for the transit authority for about 12 years. Started right after my wife and I had our first kid because the benefits were good and the hours were steady. Route 47 had been my regular assignment for the past 5 years, mostly residential neighborhoods with some shopping centers mixed in. That afternoon started like any other. I picked up my usual passengers at the mall stop around 3 p.m. The bus was maybe half full, nothing unusual. Then, at Morrison Street, this woman got on with her teenage son. I could tell something was off right away by how she was talking to him, really loud, like she wanted everyone to hear. She told her son to get on the bus, saying this was going to be perfect for him. Her voice carried through the entire bus. Her son looked embarrassed, trying to get her to quiet down, but she wasn't having it. They paid their fare and sat right behind me in the priority seating area. Most passengers don't sit that close when there are other seats available, but I didn't think much of it. We pulled away from the stop and I was focused on merging back into traffic when she suddenly stood up and leaned over the barrier right next to my seat. She told me she had a very important request. I asked her to stay behind the yellow line and asked what I could help her with. She explained that her son had just gotten his driver's license that day. She said they were so proud of him, but unfortunately they were going through some financial difficulties and couldn't afford a car right now. She complained that it wasn't fair that he couldn't celebrate this achievement properly. I congratulated her son on getting his license, but told her I wasn't sure what she needed from me. She said that since I was driving this big vehicle anyway, I could pull over and let him drive for a bit. She reasoned that he needed some real driving experience. She added that they'd paid their fare, so technically they were customers, and the customer is always right. I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I explained that I couldn't do that. I told her this was a commercial vehicle that required a commercial driver's license with a passenger endorsement. I said it was illegal for anyone else to drive it, and I could lose my job and my license. She called that ridiculous and said I was being completely unreasonable. She insisted her son needed to drive something and they didn't have a car because society had failed them. She accused me of discriminating against poor people. Her son was sinking into his seat, his face completely red. He begged his mother to stop and asked if they could just sit down. She refused, saying she would not sit down. She declared it was his special day and she wouldn't let me ruin it. Other passengers were starting to turn around and watch. An elderly woman across the aisle looked concerned. I told her I needed her to take her seat or I'd have to ask her to exit at the next stop. She said she wasn't going anywhere until I let her son drive the bus. She asked if I knew how hard it was for him to pass that test and whether I even cared. I said I understood she was proud of her son, but what she was asking was impossible. I told her again to please sit down. She started getting louder, yelling about how unfair everything was and how people like me never help people like her. I kept driving, trying to ignore her and focus on the road. We were coming up to a busier intersection. Then suddenly I felt her arms wrap around my neck from behind. She screamed at me to stop the bus right now and let him drive. I immediately slammed on the brakes. The bus screeched to a halt in the middle of the street. Horns started blaring around us. I could hear tires squealing as cars behind us stopped suddenly. My heart was pounding when I grabbed at her arms, trying to pull them away, I yelled at her to let go, saying she was going to cause an accident. Everything happened so fast after that. A man who'd been sitting a few rows back rushed forward and grabbed her, pulling her off me. Other passengers were shouting, and I heard someone say they were calling the police. The passenger who grabbed her shouted that he had her and told someone to call the authorities now. Karen was screaming the whole time about how she was the victim and how we were all ganging up on her. Her son was crying, apologizing over and over. Through his tears, her son kept saying he was so sorry and that he didn't want any of this. He said he'd told her not to do anything. I pulled the bus over properly and put on the hazard lights. My hands were shaking. Within maybe 10 minutes, police cars showed up. Officers came on board and took statements from everyone. Multiple passengers gave their accounts of what happened. One woman had even recorded part of it on her phone. The officers arrested her right there on the bus. She was still yelling when they led her away in handcuffs. She screamed about this being assault and police brutality. She insisted she was just trying to help her son. A social worker came to take care of her son since she was being taken into custody. The kid looked absolutely mortified. The transit authorities sent a replacement driver to take over my route. I had to go back to the depot to file reports and talk to supervisors. They checked the bus cameras, which had recorded everything. My supervisor told me I did the right thing by stopping immediately. If I'd lost control, we could have crashed into other vehicles or pedestrians. We were lucky, just some angry drivers and minor traffic backup. She ended up being charged with assault, endangering public safety, and interfering with a transit operator. She tried to sue them and me for discrimination, but it got thrown out immediately because of all the evidence. I took a week off after that. I had just finished my shift and needed to grab a few things before heading home. My feet were killing me from standing at the register all day, and I just wanted to get my groceries and leave. I grabbed what I needed and headed to the checkout line. There were maybe 4 or 5 people ahead of me, which wasn't bad for a Tuesday evening. I was scrolling through my phone, not really paying attention to anything, when suddenly everyone behind me started making a commotion. People were stepping back and going around something on the floor. I turned around to see what was going on, and there was this massive puddle right behind me. Ice cubes were scattered everywhere, and the liquid was spreading fast across the tile floor. Here's the thing though. I had been standing in that exact spot for at least 5 minutes, and that spill definitely wasn't there when I got in line. I would have noticed it. I would have stepped in it. Right behind where the spill was, there was this woman in her late 30s, maybe early 40s. She was wearing expensive workout clothes, the kind that cost more than my entire outfit. And in her hand, or rather, what used to be in her hand, was an empty Dunkin' Donuts cup, the big one. It was completely empty now. It didn't take a genius to figure out what happened. She had clearly dropped her drink, and it went everywhere. But here's what got me. She didn't say a word, didn't apologize to anyone, didn't try to alert a worker. She just stood there like nothing had happened, looking at her phone. Look, I get it. Accidents happen. I've dropped stuff before. We all have. But when you make a mess like that in a store, especially when other people could slip and get hurt, you're supposed to at least say something. Let someone know so they can clean it up properly. A couple of workers came rushing over with mops and caution signs. They were the same people I had just been working with an hour ago. I felt bad for them, having to clean up after someone who couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge what she'd done. Maybe she was embarrassed, I thought. Maybe that's why she wasn't saying anything. I finished checking out, paid for my stuff, and started heading toward the exit. The woman was ahead of me now, walking out with her cart. I watched when she went to the cart return, which was good. At least she was doing that much. But then she stopped and looked down at her empty cup sitting in the cart. I could literally see her thinking about it. Should I throw this away? Should I leave it here? She stood there for a good few seconds, looking at the cup, then looking around, and then she just walked away. Left the empty cup right there in the cart for some worker to deal with later. Now I'm walking right behind her, and we're passing the entrance of the store. There are 2 trash cans right there. 2 of them. Big, obvious trash cans that you literally cannot miss. They're placed there specifically so people can throw stuff away on their way out. I called out to her and pointed out that there was a trash can right there. She kept walking like I didn't exist, didn't even turn her head. I said it again louder this time, telling her that she'd left her cup in the cart and that the trash was right there. Nothing. Complete silence. She just kept walking toward her car like I was invisible, and something in me just snapped. I had spent all day dealing with rude customers. My feet hurt, and I was tired of people acting like basic courtesy was beneath them. I told her to grow up and pick up after herself. I told her she wasn't a child and shouldn't act like one. That got her attention. She stopped walking but still wouldn't look at me, just stood there with her back to me, and I could see her shoulders tense up. For a second I thought maybe she'd actually turn around and throw her trash away. Maybe she'd realize how ridiculous she was being. But no, she walked to her car, opened the door, and just before getting in, she finally turned to look at me. Then she yelled out something about how at least she didn't look like me, and then she got in her car and drove off. I just stood there in the parking lot, holding my grocery bags, completely stunned. That was her comeback. That was what she chose to say. Not an apology, not an excuse, just a random insult about my appearance because she got called out for being a slob. I started laughing. This grown woman, who had just spilled her drink all over a store, left it for workers to clean up, abandoned her trash in a cart, and ignored multiple trash cans, thought she had the moral high ground to insult me. The audacity was almost impressive. But here's what really stuck with me. She'll remember this. I guarantee it. She'll remember the person who called her out in that parking lot. Maybe next time she'll think twice before leaving her trash for someone else to deal with. Maybe she won't, but at least she knows that not everyone is going to let her get away with acting entitled. I went home, put my groceries away, and told my roommate the whole story. My roommate said I should have minded my own business, but I disagree. When people act like the world is their personal garbage can, someone needs to say something. 'Cause if we all just stay quiet and let them do whatever they want, they'll never change. The next day at work, I was telling one of my coworkers about what happened. She laughed and said she wished she'd been there to see it. Then she told me that she'd seen the same woman in the store before, always leaving messes and acting like she owned the place. Apparently, I wasn't the first person to have a problem with her. That made me feel even better about calling her out. If she's been doing this for a while, then maybe my confrontation would stick with her. Maybe she'd think about it the next time she wanted to leave her trash somewhere or ignore a mess she made. A few days later, I was back at work on the register when I saw her come into the store again. My heart started racing. Was she going to say something to me? Was she going to complain to a manager? I tried to stay calm and just focus on helping the customers in my line. She walked past my register without even looking at me. She did her shopping and went to a different checkout line. I watched her from the corner of my eye, curious to see if she'd learned anything. When she finished checking out, she walked toward the exit. And then something amazing happened. She threw her receipt in the trash can by the door. It was such a small thing, but I noticed it. She actually used the trash can. I don't know if it was because of what I said to her, or if it was just a coincidence, but I'd like to think that maybe, just maybe, I got through to her a little bit. I'm 36 years old, and if there's one thing I've learned the hard way, it's that bottling things up never ends well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My sister is 4 years younger than me, and we used to be close. Really close. We had each other's backs through everything. Our parents' messy divorce, moving between houses, all the typical chaos of a broken family trying to function. But somewhere along the way, things got complicated between us. It started small. She'd make little comments about my lifestyle, my boyfriend at the time, how I chose to live. I'm gay, and while she claimed to be supportive, there were these microaggressions that built up. Then there were the missed calls, the cancelled plans, always some excuse why she couldn't make it to things that mattered to me. I never said anything. I just swallowed it down and told myself it was fine. Meanwhile, I wasn't perfect either. I got snappy with her over stupid things, made sarcastic remarks when she talked about her problems, and generally became a version of myself I didn't like. Instead of having one honest conversation, I let every little annoyance pile up like dirty laundry in the corner of a room until you can't ignore the smell anymore. The dam finally burst last December at our mom's Christmas dinner. My sister made some comment about how I was always too sensitive about things, and I just exploded. I said things I've been holding on to for months, maybe years. She fired back. It got ugly. We didn't speak for nearly 10 months after that. It was my mom who finally got through to both of us. She called me one day in September and said she was tired of playing messenger between her adult children. She told me life was too short for this nonsense and that I needed to be the bigger person and reach out. I hated that she was right, so I texted my sister just a simple message asking if we could talk. She responded within minutes saying yes. We agreed to meet at this little cafe downtown, neutral territory, where neither of us had the home advantage. The day of the meeting, I was nervous. I got there early and ordered a coffee I didn't really want, just to have something to do with my hands. When she walked in, we both did that awkward half-wave thing people do when they're not sure if a hug is appropriate. We sat down across from each other, and for a moment, neither of us knew where to start. I broke the silence first, apologizing for everything and admitting that I should have talked to her instead of letting things build up. She said she was sorry too and acknowledged that she hadn't always been supportive in the way I needed her to be. It wasn't pretty. There were long silences where we both just stared at our cups. She cried a little. I felt my own eyes getting wet but tried to keep it together. We went back and forth, explaining our sides, acknowledging where we'd messed up. It was exhausting but necessary. About an hour into our conversation, I noticed these two older women at a nearby table. They kept looking over at us, leaning into each other and whispering. It was obvious they were talking about us. I caught snippets of their conversation, something about young people these days and relationship drama. They clearly thought we were a couple having a breakup or makeup or whatever. I tried to ignore them and focus on my sister, but it was hard not to be aware of their stares and commentary. We were in the middle of another one of those heavy silences, the kind where you've said everything you can think to say, and you're just sitting with the weight of it all, when the two women got up to leave. One of them, this lady with short gray hair and a floral scarf, stopped right at our table. She had this sympathetic look on her face, like she was about to impart some great wisdom. She put her hand on the edge of our table and leaned in close. She told us, in this confiding and encouraging tone, that we should give love a chance. She said it like she was in some romantic movie, all meaningful and supportive. Her friend stood behind her, nodding in agreement. I didn't even think. The words just came out of my mouth before I could stop them. I told her that I've been trying to convince my sister that us being siblings shouldn't have to prevent us from having sex, but it wasn't working. Then I asked if she had any tips that might help. The transformation on their faces was instant. The sympathetic looks vanished, replaced by absolute horror. Karen's mouth fell open. Her friend gasped and grabbed Karen's arm. The first woman called us disgusting and said we were both sick. Her friend added that we were absolutely revolting. They practically ran out of the cafe, stumbling over chairs in their hurry to get away from us. I heard more creative cursing in those 10 seconds than I'd heard in months. Other patrons were staring now, confused about what had just happened. The moment they were out the door, my sister and I looked at each other. There was a beat of silence, and then we both lost it. We laughed so hard that tears were streaming down our faces. The kind of laughter that makes your stomach hurt and you can't quite catch your breath. My sister said she couldn't believe I just said that to them. I reminded her that they'd been gossiping about us the whole time. She agreed and mentioned how priceless the woman's face had been when I'd said it. She wiped her eyes, still giggling, and then she said something that made the whole awkward, painful, emotional afternoon worth it. She told me she'd missed me. Just 3 words, but they meant everything. We talked for another hour after that, and it was easier. The laughter had broken something open between us, reminded us of who we used to be together. We made plans to meet again the next week, and when we hugged goodbye, it felt real. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.